here. We're about to begin our webinar on how to handle being triggered. It should be a really juicy dialogue. So give us just a minute. We're going to get ourselves all set, and we'll be right with you. Begin.
What's up, everybody? Want to wish everybody a happy, it's 420 today.
Yeah.
Happy Wednesday, everybody. I'm really excited. It's always a pleasure to speak with these amazing, talented experts, aka Jennifer and Bryan. I'm going to give you a little bit of background and bio. We've got an amazing topic to be discussing this evening. So much excitement and interest around this. It's funny too, because I think like spring comes and people start finding love and falling in love and wanting love, and some folks are already in relationships. Everyone's, I imagine, has been in a relationship at one point in time. So whether you're in a relationship, looking to be in a better relationship, or want to understand how to handle this particular topic of being triggered, so that you can even look back in hindsight and see where this came up and you could have done things differently. It's just so much learning, so much is available on this topic, and we couldn't be speaking with two better people, including myself, being in a very epic, amazing conscious relationship right now where I get to be in this process. Couldn't be more timely for me to be speaking into it, as well as learning from the two of these ninjas also. So I will say, we had both of you, Jennifer Russell and Bryan Franklin, on the Ultimate Love Summit.
Oh man, that was great. So much fun.
For those of you who might have, joined us there as well. And it was such a highly appreciated interview. I got just great feedback from it, and I had a blast doing it. So that to be, talking with you guys again is exciting for me too, and I know that people are going to get a lot out of it. So, how are the two of you doing this evening?
Oh, so good.
So good. I've been having just dozens of calls with people about evolving their love stories. And, I get to just fall in love with each person, one after the next, after the next. So I am really excited to dive into this topic because I see it as really the area that actually ends up undermining most relationships, because we get to the point where we trigger and hurt each other so badly that we fall apart. And so if we can like up level or upgrade the operating system of how we do trigger, I think we're, saving a lot of heartache and pain in the world and a lot of relationships going south. So I'm really excited to kind of present to you guys what we've figured out. All three of us have figured out around this. Yeah,
that's massive. And so for those listening, I mean, we're going to go into, we'll talk a little bit about, what triggers are, just a little overview of how they look. We imagine you've got some understanding. Once we give a little context to it, I'm sure you'll get it quick and easy. But we'll do that. We'll go into. I'm really hoping, as raw, beautiful, vulnerable, and authentic as these two individuals are, I'm sure they'll be very candid with their own stories,
of course,
both pretty and otherwise. And
it's the name of the game with this topic.
In all seriousness, like, we know better. We know it's all beautiful. And those rough, edgy parts, I know that you guys will be bold enough to share, and there's so much value there as well. Not just sharing like, here's what we did right and how wonderful everything is, but let's, we get to see the truth and where you guys evolved from.
Yeah, humble beginnings for both of us. Really humble beginnings.
Yeah. Can I ask too? Would you both be willing to give a little bit of context to your relationship situation prior to even meeting each other?
Yeah, sure.
Awesome.
You want to? Yeah, you want to start, Bryan?
Back where the triggers even started, right?
Yeah. So, well,
we're talking about in utero if we go back that far. However, we can talk a little bit about the context of our relationship. You want to talk about who you were before we met? And
I think some of my triggers I picked up from when we were single-celled organisms, for a couple of million years of evolution. But I'm determined that they'll stop with me. So that's the good part.
Beautiful statement. But, so let me get for those of you who don't know who these two individuals are, let me give a little bit of a bio and background. It's so worth doing, so you can understand just who it is that you're learning from. If you haven't met these two people yet, and I'll give this first. I want to give my 1-minute bio, and then we'll give you a little bit of background on these two. But me personally, I've had the pleasure of working with seeing these folks both work in a workshop environment and see them teach and serve at a very high level, and was blown away. I've been able to play with them in a very fun event called Burning Man, and see how they show up in community, see how they show up in leadership, see how they show up in professional environments. And in every time, it's clean, it's authentic, it's just beautiful. And so I just continued to really go deeper with my appreciation and love for the two of you. And
thank you, Dallas. That's really sweet.
That first.
Thank you.
Yeah.
That's really sweet.
Yeah. It's really cool to get to know people and see them in layers and different contexts. And so I wanted to share that first. So the next thing I'll share is that Bryan and Jennifer, they've been leading and doing over 20 years of impactful transformational events designed to liberate people from self-imposed limiting beliefs. We all have some form of those in one way or another, and they incorporate so many different techniques: NLP, human potential movement, different family systems, attachment therapy, spiritual practices, neuroscience, tribal circling technologies, and even sacred theater, which I love because I just love theater in general. I love the idea of entertaining and play and being able to teach from that place. Really powerful. Opens up people to really hear and learn in a new way. And been in the business domain also. Not only are they badasses in the relationship domain, but in the business domain, they founded over a dozen businesses themselves. They've helped more than 7 companies scale to $1 billion mark and helped thousands of entrepreneurs create successful businesses. And I've had the pleasure of meeting a lot of those entrepreneurs. Bryan and Jennifer have been working with couples to develop a deeper context for their relationship designed to leading both partners towards their own individual evolution. And that's huge. I know we'll get into that discussion, part of that discussion in this call. That's a key distinction in terms of triggers and conscious relationship. And they're a stand for relationships that have a both and, which I love. I've been really leaning into this and living this more and more versus either or bullshit. You know, this idea of sacrifice, and sometimes you get what you want, sometimes I get what I want. It all gets to be epic, ladies and gentlemen. It all gets to be beautiful and awesome. And so, yeah, this is going to be fun. Let's get started.
So good. So good.
So good to be here.
Well, I think one of the best places to dive in is actually like, what do we mean when we say triggered? Because, you know, something I learned from some of my mentors is that you really become to understand something when you have at least 7 different definitions of it. And so even if you have the one that you have, it's sometimes valuable to see it from the different perspectives. So let's just begin with like, what do we mean when we say triggered? You want to?
Well, one definition of triggered is when where your emotional body rises up and the amount of options you have to respond gets significantly reduced. So if you normally have lots of different ways you might respond to someone when they approach you, you could joke with them, you could be compassionate with them, you could rib them, you could tease them, you could scold them, and all that's kind of like, if you think about a tool belt, that's all like available to you and you can just reach for any one easily. One way to define a trigger is when that tool belt gets reduced down to 3 or 2 or maybe even only 1 tool, which, you know, for some people might be sad, or for some people might be screaming, or for some people might be leaving, or, you know, you just get triggered down to your 1 tool and you use your tool and then you're out of there. So that's one definition of a trigger.
Yeah, let me add one, and then we'll get Dallas to maybe add his. I think, you know, when I think about trigger, I think it's about being pushed beyond the boundary at which you can be yourself. So it's the moment in time when you are really abandoning your true self, your true essence. You know, I see our true essence is having access to all of our resources. And the moment that you're pushed to the point of being outside of that, the moment that you're pushed to the point where you have to abandon yourself, I see that as a moment of trigger. So that's maybe another take on it. I like what you said, Bryan. We've never actually defined this out loud, so it's really good to get it. How about you, Dallas? You wanna add how you see trigger?
Killer. Yeah, those are fantastic. I'll start by saying that, and I definitely agree. And it's just easily a both and, a yes and.
Of course,
in terms of what I might offer, which is basically the way I first learned this. It was, if there wasn't anything there to relate to, then you'd have no experience, right? So someone would say something to you. Someone, you know, your loved one, your partner might say something to you about the way that you look, right? And if body image is a big thing for you, then it may bring up an emotion that feels like, you know, anger or resentment. If there wasn't anything there, you wouldn't feel anything. It would like roll off your back like water off a duck. And so the way I see it is it's like this linear connection to a past event. And so something happens that viscerally in your body connects you to a past event, and you react.
Yeah.
Now, one thing I wanted to mention about this, I noticed for me, this was true for me, and I wonder if there's other people listening who might have the same thing, where I kind of defined myself as someone who didn't get triggered or didn't get triggered easily. You know, I wouldn't say never, because I was smart enough not to be that out of touch with reality. But I defined myself as someone who didn't get triggered easily. So a lot of the times that I would get triggered, I would hide it. I would hide it for myself because it didn't match my idea of someone who didn't get triggered. And, you know, particularly as a a masculine identified man where maybe being in touch with my emotions isn't my first go-to thing. It's not my first genius. I'm much more likely to be sensitive to what's going on out there. So I would get triggered, not think I was triggered. Everybody else could tell something was wrong with, something's wrong with me, or like something's up for me. They say, what's going on? I'm like, what are you talking about? So I just wanted to mention that, in our definitions, notice we didn't say anything about the intensity of the emotional content. And part of that is because depending on your relationship to your own emotional content, you may or may not actually realize when you've lost those resources, or as Jennifer said, when you've abandoned yourself, or Dallas, like you were saying, when you've taken your past pain and put it into the present, and you are starting to relate to it as though it's really happening again, which are all components of trigger.
Yeah.
But you might not be noticing.
Yeah. I think there's a misconception, before we get into how to handle being triggered, we're still kind of talking about what it is. I think there's a misconception. I happen to be 41, and I think we think that we're whatever age we are. Like, I think I'm 41. But what I get about time, and I don't want to wax too metaphysical here, but what I get about time is that we're not actually 41. I'm actually 3 years old, and 5 years old, and 27 years old, and 32 years old, and 9 months old. And I'm all of those ages. I'm actually all of that. And when you realize that, then when you notice someone in a trigger, you notice, oh, this is a 5-year-old that's tantruming, that I'm talking to. And it gives you a different perspective on how to handle it when you realize that we have access outside of time. Just look at yourself when you're at your worst. You're definitely not 41 years old if you're me, right? I'm not being 41 when I'm yelling or crying histrionically or upset. I'm definitely like 3 or 7 or some kind of young age. And so if you realize that being triggered is a moment in time where you're not bringing all of you, like all of those ages all at once, but when you're regressed back to an earlier state. And that earlier state is not the senior consciousness. It's not the wise part of you. It's one small slice of you at a particular age. And that to me is another definition of what is trigger.
Yeah. And to add to that, the age that comes up is any age that you had an experience that wasn't satisfactorily handled by you. So if any age, anytime you had any experience that wasn't resolved to your satisfaction, is a future trigger waiting to happen.
Yeah,
that's huge. So we go to a young girl and a mom who is so self-conscious of her own situation, tells her daughter, stop eating that, you're going to get fat.
Yep.
Now that's a 12-year-old. We fast forward to the 43-year-old who is eating something, and her husband comes in the kitchen and spouts something similar. And now that 43-year-old is now
12.
The triggered 12-year-old.
Yep.
Yeah,
absolutely.
How dare you, or wherever she goes with it, right?
And where the kind of compassion comes in is, when you look at a 12-year-old feeling like her self-esteem has been eroded, whether it's real or imagined, right? I mean, maybe he didn't actually say anything that objectively anyone would find offensive.
Maybe it did, maybe it didn't.
Maybe it didn't, but there is a 12-year-old whose self-esteem is eroded in that moment. And if you can realize that when you're triggered, that's what's happening. You're not your senior consciousness self with all of your resources. You're a younger version of you that at that age, you didn't have the tools to have a mature adult, fully resourced response to that kind of commentary coming at you when you're still questioning like who you are in the world. And so, part of this work is about like having us realize that and having us know that we can actually re-resource. If I can regress to be 12 or 3 or 5 or 7 or whatever age, then I can actually send adult resources back to that age and grow myself and reparent myself. Right. And that ability of our imagination to actually repattern our neurology such that like that 12-year-old then gets to grow up with the tool I never had at 12, with the self-esteem I wish I had known. Like that is actually at our fingertips. Yeah. This is an incredible understanding of how our neurology works. And so we just like to take advantage of that, and take advantage of our rich imaginations to help us handle our trigger.
When you consider what's happening, there some really interesting implications come into play. For example, that woman is the only person in the world who has any contact with the 12-year-old. That 12-year-old is from another time, from a time past. The mother had one chance, one shot at handling that interaction well, and for whatever reason, it didn't go to the 12-year-old's satisfaction. Whether that's the mother's fault or not, that's unknowable at this point. Right. But now the adult woman is the only one who can reach that 12-year-old, not her husband, not her therapist, not any.
No, it lives in her psyche.
Exactly.
Right. There's no other way in.
Not her mom. Her mom can't go refix that. It's so therefore, when you're triggered, it's actually impossible that your partner is the one triggering you, because your partner has no contact with that 12-year-old. The partner can't reach the 12-year-old to upset it, nor can it reach the 12-year-old to soothe it, which has some pretty powerful implications in terms of what that means when you're triggered. Because I don't know about you, when I'm triggered and I admit it, which is some subset of the times that I'm triggered.
Let me count. No, I'm kidding.
When I'm triggered and I admit it, I have to realize it's so convincing that, if it's with Jennifer, that Jennifer has triggered me, that she raised her voice and that hurt my feelings. And I didn't like the way she did that. And therefore she's the one triggering me. And now I have all these unpleasant experiences and emotions rising up, and I'm walking around with crazy thoughts, and it's Jennifer's fault, obviously, that's happening. That's what that feels so real. And the way to handle being triggered in an evolutionary partnership is to begin with the understanding that perceived reality is an illusion, and in fact, you are the one that's creating the trigger. She's created the opportunity to be triggered. You are creating the trigger. It doesn't mean that you may not want to have a conversation with your partner about behaviors that you might prefer to change.
Yeah, that's a key distinction. Go ahead.
But if Jennifer's I have a car, a convertible, in the passenger side of the car. The door doesn't close properly anymore. The electrics are broken, so you have to kind of jiggle the window to close the door just to get it. Just get it right. We haven't repaired it yet. So this does not happen to trigger me. So the first time Jennifer closed the door and it kind of made a loud sound, and I said, "Oh, hun, so what I'd like you to do is try to remember when you get in, just try and tuck the window like this." And that would work for me. That is how you would handle every situation that you wanted to change your partner's behavior. "Oh, honey, hey, there's this thing that I like different. Could you do it differently this other way?" And that could be the whole conversation. And she might say, "Oh, you know what? That actually doesn't work for me." Or I think you might have said something. "Well, can you help me remember, because I'm forgetting to do that. So can you help me remember?" "Oh yeah, sure. I can help you remember."
And that's a natural, untriggered way of handling something when it doesn't go well, right? You're not yelling or screaming or histrionic. You've got your full faculties with you.
I would never do that. I can't believe, right? Yeah. So all of everything that is added on top of that way of talking about a change in behavior is what you're bringing from your history. So first, we want to talk about actually resolving and repairing these triggers. And the first thing I think that we want to call into this conversation is something we realized pretty recently, actually, in our relationship, which was that when you are resolving a fight, let's say you get in a fight, you're triggered, your partner's triggered, and you're resolving the fight, you're angry, you're triggered, you're upset, and then you kind of get to the point where everybody's emotional stasis is resumed, and you feel okay, and they feel okay, and you're in love again, and then it all feels normal again. That whole process is only one half of the entire sort of resolution and repair process of a trigger or of an upset. And forever, I thought that was the whole thing. And I actually focused on really, really getting good at leading myself and my partner, once we were triggered, to not be triggered anymore. And to me, if we had a relationship where we were basically never triggered, or if we got triggered, we could recover very quickly, that was code for like a really good relationship. That was evolutionary to me.
Yeah, and I, on the other hand, so he's focusing kind of all of his energy and effort, like when we have a conflict, on, you know, returning us to a positive state. Right. And for him, that's the beginning, middle. At the time, it was the beginning, middle, and end of, this is how to handle a trigger, honey. Look, I'm trying to get us back to just being able to be calm and relax. And I looked at him, and we had fights about this all the time. And I said, I don't give a crap about any of that. Are you kidding me? Like, you know, you can apologize. I don't care about that. I just want it to be different. Yeah. Right. I just want the behavior to change. You know, if we're going to keep going this way, you know, it's just going to keep coming up. And if all we ever do is just get us to be back to happy, and we'd never address actually repairing it, actually changing the behavior, I couldn't care less. So I was sitting there in our relationship really good at that part. Like, you know, when I decide there's something that needs to be changed, just one of my superpowers is, and we're going to talk about how to do this, and we want to teach you guys this, is repairing it, is changing it, changing the behavior permanently. Right. But I was terrible. I mean, Dallas, I was terrible when I met Bryan at the first part, which was apologizing and being kind and restoring the state, partly because I devalued it and didn't even think of that as part of like how to handle being triggered. So we were each coming at each other with opposites, like genius powers, like his ability to like calm everybody down and peacemake and have everybody be restored to like a nice humane way of relating to one another. And even in the face of me being angry, he was like Herculean in his ability to like take that and listen and go, okay, I'll take that in, you know? And I was this, you know, incredible at like, okay, I got a piece of feedback. Okay, got it. It's never going to happen again. Done.
So I was sitting there, you know, this is a few years ago now, you know, let's say 4 or 5 years ago. And I would have convinced you that there's this one aspect of our relationship that's really out of balance, you know, which is that when it comes to resolving fights, I'm the one that does the resolving. I'm always coming towards Jennifer and I'm kind of leading it. And if I get upset and then she gets upset, I have to drop whatever I'm upset about and kind of calm her down. Then I calm her down and then it's all resolved. And it's kind of, you know, and
this is the one area where it's out of balance.
Yeah,
right?
exactly. Which, by the way, if you ever think any part of your relationship is out of balance, I guarantee that you're doing what I was doing, which was deleting an entire another factor.
Yeah, we're just to double underline that for those of you that love to geek out on relationship stuff and really learn about it. You know, there's a model by Bert Hellinger in a book that's called Love's Hidden Symmetry. And this is an eye opener. So just even this one, like Reader's Digest concept, that's the summary of the book, which is that no matter what the issue is, that when you're in a partnership, that there is a symmetry to every single issue, conflict, fight, trigger, that you wouldn't be able to relate at all. There would be nothing keeping you together if that symmetry didn't exist. You just wouldn't overlap. Yeah. And it's that it can hook in that has it become a conflict. And so rest assured, if any of you are like, nope, my partner, this is really out of balance. There's, you know, it's them, that there is a symmetry, a love's hidden symmetry that you can be like sniffing for and looking for in yourself. Right. And if you ask your partner, they'll probably give you a mouthful about what it is. But
so the things that are that are always symmetrical are things like the experience of guilt. Yeah. The experience of innocence. So if you feel like really guilty about one thing, really innocent about something else, and you think that's out of balance, guaranteed your partner feels really guilty, the same amount guilty about some other thing, the same amount innocent about some other thing. Perpetrator, victim, all of these kinds of experiences, powerlessness, they're always symmetrical. So anyway, but then, you know, and I wanted this satisfaction of like Jennifer saying she was sorry and coming towards me and resolving it and admitting that she was wrong about some things which she would never admit. And I was really upset. Although I did notice that when like whatever it was that we were fighting about, that like over the next 2 or 3 months, she would totally change around that thing. And I was like, well, that's, it's almost like this for me, it was like this under the waterline, under the radar covert change operation where she wouldn't say that she was going to, or it wouldn't, we wouldn't get it in the kind of conversation, but then it would actually change. And she, of course, was noticing the symmetrical opposite thing, which is...
Yeah, my story was, oh man, our relationship is really out of balance, Dallas. Let me tell you about Bryan, like over and over and over, like the same behaviors are triggering us, and it's the same thing. And he keeps doing it, and it keeps happening, and it keeps happening.
Well, it turns out if you're really good at talking your way out of trouble, then
you don't need to get good at changing the behavior.
Yeah,
right?
you spend less time investing in not getting in trouble in the first place. So, and that was, kind of metaphorically all over my life, not just in my relationship. So,
yeah, we don't live in compartments for sure.
No, how you do anything is how you do everything. I mean, if you take that in, that's a real learning tool for you.
So that transformed it for us, because it changed what felt like something that was out of balance for me, or something that was out of balance for Jennifer, and turned it into, oh, well, we have some specialization here. I bring a skill to the relationship, and you bring a different skill to the relationship. So yeah. I'll tell you what, I'll be your student in what we call repair, the ability to actually change
the behavior
in the future over a long period of time. And you'll be my student in resolve, in the ability to resolve the emotional conflict. And you know what? They both are important, because the repair is influenced by the resolve, and the amount of high vibration and low vibration state in the moment is really important. And of course, not re-injuring the same trigger again and again because you haven't healed it or haven't seen it is important. So,
yeah, I mean, go ahead, Dallas. Yeah.
So the man is wanting to get completion around the event in front of him. And so let me dissipate this emotion, whatever it is, and get us back to happy.
Yeah.
So we feel it's done. We're complete. Awesome. And the woman is wanting to feel safe that it's not going to happen again.
Yeah.
And that we're going to continue to play in this place that just doesn't feel good, and we have to keep repeating the same patterns over and over again. And I'm noticing, like, I probably in the past would have only focused on one side of this.
Which one?
Also.
Which one's which one are you good at? Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I think I'm like Bryan also, in wanting just the other person just to know that they feel better now.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, interesting. Yeah.
Okay. You feel better now. Okay.
Yeah.
Good.
Totally.
Okay. We're done. We got it.
I'm out of trouble. You feel better. Cool.
Check the box.
That's right.
Yeah. I want to point out a couple of things that you folks are saying that I just find to be so important and powerful for the listeners here is, one, the other person's not triggering you.
Yeah.
Just to kind of go back and really highlight that for the listeners, because it's so easy when we are triggered to be pointing the finger externally. It's the go-to immediately.
Yeah.
So that's really important to understand, that it's not necessarily about the other partner. The other partner is probably not even aware that they've said or done something that's creating this relationship, or reminding you of a relationship that you have to some story or event.
Even if they're deliberately pushing your buttons because they know
to understand. Yeah,
they know you'll be upset.
Oh man, this was such an awakening moment for me to realize exactly what you're saying, Gal. So I just want to emphasize it for everybody listening, because it's an important one, which is, if you're yelling or triggered, if you're reacting externally by yelling or running away, fight, flight, any of those reactive responses, right, that you would have, are not about the other person. They're only about you. The minute that's how you're engaging, it's no longer about them and what they did or what they didn't do. And if you really take that in, oh, this is about me. This is about something that happened. This is like a wound from years ago. I'm not just reacting to this person in this time and space. I am reacting to some historical pain, some historical wound, and it's not even about them. Because if it was, it would go more like what Bryan said earlier with the window. Oh, hey, I didn't like that so much. Could we try something different? Like, right? It would be a relaxed, calm, adult version of you. Yeah. So just notice, if you're reacting, yelling, crying histrionically, running away,
using what we call universal qualifiers. Always.
You always never do this thing.
Never. Yeah, those are good signs. Yeah.
Yeah. You're number one, you're triggered. Number two, you're not your age. And number three, it's not about them.
Yeah.
Right. So just taking that wisdom, that was a really good one for me, man. It just really changed. I was like, wow. I keep thinking it's totally about him and how he has broken his 47th promise to me.
And you know what partners do, because they love each other so much, they actually decide to co-believe lies about themselves and each other. In other words, if you have a partner who's really triggered and upset because you did something that made them jealous, and then what you'll do, because you love them, is agree to a reality in which that's true. And now you are guilty for doing the wrong thing that made them jealous, and you apologize for doing the wrong thing. You feel guilty and decide that you're kind of broken in some way, and that you're promising to fix it. And so you've both participated in this facade of wrongness, which has the effect of concealing the actual source of the trigger in the other partner, which would be if it's jealousy, it's usually going to be rooted in some version of I'm not enough. Yeah, self-esteem or insecurity. Yeah. But since that gets concealed by this agreement made of love, I love you, so I'm going to agree to your reality, even though it feels bad, even though part of me may even know better, but I'm not going to stand up for that. Because of that agreement, that trigger is guaranteed to resurface in the future. And so what normal couples do is they just have a smaller and smaller and smaller playing field around, giving their triggers a wider and wider berth, so that they have smaller and smaller behaviors, so that they don't re-traumatize any of the partner's historical trauma. And then the partner does what they can to numb out that trauma, and then so you have kind of a small numb existence, which is why I think in the 70s and 80s and even in the 90s in popular media, marriage gets such a bad name. Like the expression, the old ball and chain, has to do, I think, from that observation.
I immediately think of Alan Peggy Bundy.
Yeah, me too.
Exactly. So in an extraordinary relationship, obviously you're not doing that.
Sure.
So let me tell you like the 3 steps to resolve real quick.
Yeah. I just want to say, absolutely, let's do it, because we shifted, just like we're opening the kimono here, we shifted from each of us thinking the relationship's out of balance and neither of us are resolving our conflicts or handling trigger well. We changed and said, oh my God, we're each geniuses at half of the equation of what it takes to handle trigger well. Let's pay attention and let's get good at both, and like we say, not either or, both resolving. And there are 3 steps that we're going to take you through to how to do this, and repairing, which is changing the behavior. 3 steps to doing that. And let's play with that and maybe write these steps down and see if they don't help you handle trigger in ways that have, it not repattern and regroove and run your relationship. Because for most of us, our triggers are running the relationship. They became part of the DNA of how we relate. And, they're really up for revision now. Like you can actually decide, this is up for revision. Let me rewrite my relationship DNA so that I'm not continuing to trigger the same wounds. So we really were very humbled by each other. And now I'm in awe of Bryan and his ability to do what he does. And he's similarly just celebrated me for my just amazing ability to change when I say I'm going to change.
You guys are in for such a treat when she will teach you how to do that self-changing that she's been teaching me.
Yeah, we kind of break it down. I mean, it's a longer conversation, but we're going to give you kind of the short version.
Yeah. It's just awesome.
Yeah, awesome. That's fantastic. And I appreciate the honor and appreciation that you share with each other. And I can tell you with my beloved, I feel the same way. And I'm so in awe of her as well, and how she shows up and how I get to then show up in beautiful response to that. It's just been very fun.
So good. Isn't it great when you stop the kind of game of when you're making each other wrong for being different?
It's
and instead loving how you're different.
it's something that I had been desiring, and there's so many things that shifted inside of me to allow for this relationship to now happen. And I want to I want to hear these 3 points. I'm very cognizant of everyone's time, of course, and I also want to make a point at this time that what you just shared is that the other person. It just brings me back to this point that you guys were sharing earlier about the other person not being responsible for your healing, right? They're not the ones who triggered you. It's not necessarily about what they're doing to you, and they're also not responsible necessarily to fix it or you.
They can't.
It doesn't mean you can't make new agreements and have a conversation with somebody about what you would prefer or desire, and find a new way of being with each other,
or even set boundaries. Like, hey, for us to work for me, it's this is a boundary for me, so it has to be, I have to feel like I can trust X, Y, and Z behavior, and that's going to allow me to relax and want to participate. You can totally do that.
But at least that's a higher quality conversation than the ones we're normally doing when we're triggered, when we're, well, you're wrong and you're the bad one.
That? What kind of a person would kind of an evil, horrible, yeah, exactly. So
let's talk about these 3 steps. But Bryan, why don't you start with resolving?
My domain is the resolving the emotional piece, getting back to happy. So 3 steps. Step number 1 is if you're digging yourself a hole, drop the shovel. So step number 1 is just to stop whatever you're doing. Just the minute you are aware that you're triggered, just stop and start to breathe.
Stand down.
Yeah,
right?
Exactly. Now, part of why is you cannot win an argument with someone you love, because you love them and you don't want them to lose. So if you win and they lose, you lose. If you lose and they win, you lose. If you both lose, you lose. So the only thing you can do when you're in a win-lose argument, which is every time you're triggered, is to stop. So that's the first thing. And the second piece, so that's the second step, is to completely disbelieve your thoughts. Now, my 11-year-old son, Spencer, observed that excitement and the ecstatic state is the same vibration as truth.
Yeah, this is so beautiful.
So excitement is truth. Bliss is truth. This is the power of now. When you are in the moment and you are experiencing the truth of the moment, there is no option other than to be one breath away from tears of joy and beauty. So if you are not excited or enthusiastic or ecstatic, joyful, if that is not your state, then just on a physics basis, you have no access to truth. You cannot resonate with truth. You cannot truthful thoughts cannot permeate your being if you're not in that state.
Because it's such a higher refined frequency to be in alignment with truth, right? And when you're your worst self, right? When you're unresourced and young and wounded and lashing out, you can't. You're not at the same vibratory level as the truth. And this was a beautiful revelation given to us by, at the time, I think he was 8 years old. Yeah. But it's like sitting in Darshan with like an 8-year-old who's like schooling you on the nature of the universe to know Spencer, just to say a little bit about who he is. He's a beautiful soul.
He's got a podcast we could probably plug later. But anyway, so given that you're triggered and you're not vibrating at the vibration of truth, which means that anything that you are fighting for, the point you think you have to make, the thing that you think is true, the thing that you want to show your partner, is heavily distorted, and you're actually fighting for a false truth, which you're going to be sorry once your partner believes you. So you cannot win that argument. Just drop the shovel, stop, disbelieve your thoughts.
Yeah, say more about that. I mean, becoming the observer of what's coming up and being willing to disagree with it or see a different perspective.
Well, there's a moment before you say something when you hear yourself say it in your head first. You can almost hear yourself say, "You never loved me, and you always I'm always last on your list." You might, and you hear yourself say that in your mind right before you're going to say it, and so just stop. Hear yourself say that and know it's not true. No, I'm not. Okay. I want to say that she's always, I'm always last on her list. but I know that's not true. So given that I want to say it and I know it's not true, now what? Now what do I do? And that starts to open up other possibilities for what you can do in the moment.
Mm-hmm.
And another thing, another aspect of disbelieving your thoughts is just notice that part of those distortions are going to be sensitivities. If something's really bugging you, it's probably more likely that you're super sensitive to that thing because of your background than your partner is being malicious or unconscious or, just hurting you because they don't care, which is what it seems like. But if you've got a big old sore thumb and your partner brushes up against it, it seems like your partner doesn't care about your sore thumb. But in fact, your thumb's just sore, and a normal behavior, like just brushing up against you because they want to say hi or, whatever, a normal behavior is going to cause pain because of your pre-existing condition called sore thumb. And then the third thing, and this is the third step, and this has liberated me in the moment more than anything else, because oftentimes when if you're trying to resolve that emotional disparity and your partner's upset with you and your partner's making an accusation, which is unfair, I'll go back to you always put me last on your list. Let's say your partner says that to you and that's not true. So now you're caught between a rock and a hard place, because you can either disagree with your partner and basically tell them, no, that's not true, which is just going to further the fight, or you can agree as to some false reality which is not true, which is collapsing your own integrity. So you've got no win there between those two. And it feels to me like a tension in my chest. It's like a tension in my chest, and I just am steaming and I don't know what to do and I'm triggered. So the thing that releases that tension is step 3, which is to ask for what you want. And so in that moment, she says, how come you always put me last on your list? I say, you know what? I want to learn how to love you even better. And I also want to feel recognized for the ways that I do love you well. I want those two things. And I'm not arguing with whether I put you last on my list. I'm in favor of loving you even better. I'm in favor of making you feel even more prioritized. And I'm also in favor of being recognized for the ways I do. And which, so those things aren't happening right now. And that's what I want. And if you can say that desire without making it an ultimatum, without expecting any kind of response, just stating it as a desire.
Sure.
For me, what happens is that tension in my chest relaxes. I'm standing in my integrity, what's true for me, without arguing with what she's saying. And it just drops the whole de-escalation of the emotional piece. She's hearing what I want without an attack, which is going to make her much more likely to be able to respond in a sane manner.
And I just want to add, I think just even the ability to do that one thing of asking for what you want, that alone will not only shift your relationship, but your entire freaking life.
Yeah.
And there's work to do for many people in that space, but I love that's number 3, and it's just something that I want to encourage everyone listening, men or women. But after coaching for 7 years, I see this more with women. But it's just the practice of just asking for what you want, rather than assuming someone should know,
or some strategy to try and get it.
Exactly, trying to manipulate or figure out some way to get them to know versus just saying it. It's magical.
Yeah, and let me add, Dallas, I love this because on the receiving end of that, sometimes it'll go down something like this. I'll be critical or judgmental of something, and maybe even harsh, and he'll look at me and say, gosh, Jennifer, I notice I'm really sensitive about this very thing. And what I really want is to hear what you're saying, but have you just say it in a way that has more tenderness. So can you tell me what it is that you're going to say? Like, I don't want you to not tell me what it is you're going to say, but can you, like, what I need right now, because I'm sensitive, is a little bit of tenderness. And then the minute I hear that, it goes from us like he's defensive and then I'm critical and then we're back and forth, right? It goes from like, oh, he's like asking me for tenderness. Like I start to feel compassion, and then like all of a sudden that he asked for hearing me, but with more tenderness in my voice, it's so easy for me. And even if I can't do it right in the moment, maybe I have to get one more jab in, like, well, you know, you've been so difficult.
I would be if you weren't.
If you just would listen more, maybe I could be more tender. But then then my system goes through William James, like 30 seconds, 90 seconds. And then I go, okay, well, I hear you. And I can say that tenderly, like, here's what it's about. And then it just cracks through. And then the quality of interaction is very different because already my state is softened by him having an earnest request around what he wants. So just so you see it from the other side, what is it like when someone does this? It completely takes the state from a state of attack, defend, attack, defend, attack, defend, to now I'm on his team wanting to give him what he wants.
Well, and just to be clear, the purpose of asking for what you want is not so you can get it.
Yeah, I might not give it to him.
There was a really great fight. It was really really hard for us. And
which one?
At the end, at the core of it, I know she's like, I'm curious what you
which
say.
one he's gonna say. I don't know.
At the you know, when I was able to detect what I want. Notice, by the way, I'm not asking for what I want when it's still occurring to me. Like, I want you to, you know, just jump off the building. You know, like,
it's got to be.
I want you to get the hell out. You know,
it's
like it's what do you actually want that's going to be a win for everybody? And I said, what I really, you know, I didn't feel trusted. I felt criticized. I felt like managed, and I just didn't feel trusted at all. And I said, Jennifer, I really want you to trust me.
Yeah.
You know, what I'm wanting is your trust.
Trust me. Yeah.
And Jennifer said, well, right now I don't trust you. And I had given her cause in the past not to trust me. So I was like, oh, you know what? That's okay. Actually, I want you to trust me, and I don't trust you isn't a fight. It's just what's true. And when that was spoken like that, the fight was over and we were holding each other and we could feel the reality of that. But then now we were partners in rebuilding that trust versus arguing over whether I saw that like I should or shouldn't be trusted, or she was wrong for trusting me or not trusting me.
Right. It's a much higher quality conversation about, wow, what do we do? I don't trust you. How do we restore trust? Like what versus here are all the ways and the 47 times that you were untrustable, and look at my evidence.
That you weren't trustable.
And then his side of like defending. But don't you understand that I, you know, did it because of this and this and this, and I was justified. You know, all of that goes away in that moment.
But the example you're using isn't a fair example, because the other time that, you know, like you know how that goes. That's never going to go well, right?
Yeah. So when you can bring the conversation from your trigger into, you know, stopping breathing, you know, then noticing your insensitivities, disbelieving that whatever's coming out of you is about them at all, because it's about you. If you're triggered, if they're triggered, it's not about you. It's about them. It's about their own historical pain. And then ask for what you want. That would create a win in the system. That will restore you back down into kind of a more adult version of you, so that you can actually handle what we call the next step, right? Which is, for me, the part that I love. And I'm getting much, much better at the first, and really just surrendering to him as my teacher in this area of resolving.
And then this is where I surrender it with her as my teacher.
Yeah, but then there's this other part of the process, right? If you just ended there, you know, you'd be shortchanging yourself from actually going like, oh, so now we have this trust issue.
Well, let me put a stamp on this just
for
a second, because I think it's important to recognize what the two of you just said and did, was that you sharing what you wanted or doing these things to kind of you know, dissolve the emotional trigger in the moment. It's not just about fixing the problem. Sometimes you've got to allow each other to be where they're at, and to just to feel their fucking emotions.
Yep.
Yeah.
And not create more meaning and more story with it and continue to go down the road. That's really massive, because most people think the only reason why they're on this call is to figure out some way to fix everything.
Yeah.
And it might be, we might be teaching you the most important thing is, can you be with it?
Yeah, that's the upsell. The upsell is we teach you how to fix it. But the free course is to just be with how much it sucks. And then for You pay us a little money, we'll teach you how to fix it.
Oh, it's so fun. Yeah. I mean, half the battle to me is being able to be with it. I love that you bring that up because we are so often avoidant of the difficult emotions. We try to hide or fade or fix instead of just being with. And then that makes us feel the person who's having the emotional out is going to feel way, way, way unsafe because their reality is not even allowed to be present in the space. So anyway,
so just summarize the 1, 2, 3 for me, and then
Sure.
Yep.
Number 1, drop the shovel. Stop and breathe. Just stop.
Stop and breathe. Yeah.
Number 2, disbelieve your thoughts. Recognize that you are not in contact with the truth.
Yep. It's not about you if you're triggered, and it's not about them if you're triggered.
Everything that comes up to your mind, just don't believe what it's saying because it's not reliable.
Story, go for a second.
And then number 3, ask for what you want.
Awesome.
Yep.
Killer. Cool.
So we don't want to leave you hanging, right? So what's the second part? So let's talk about the repair, the good part,
yeah,
right?
Exactly. Got to get to the good part.
Let's get to the real conversation.
Right.
Exactly. Just kidding. They're both equally important. We both had to learn how equally important they are,
Really?
which is, I just want to emphasize as we joke, just to make it fun. But now there's the repair. And so here's for me the first process in the repair, which is to look for your own cause in the matter. All right. So look for your own cause in the matter. And one of the ways that I've been able to do this is by fading out everything, everyone, all the people that are involved, all of the situations that are involved in what I think is part of this trigger, and fade everything out but your own reaction. So it's like, imagine there you are in the room and there's Bryan, if it's us, and he's maybe broken a promise or done something that makes him not trust me, and there's the evidence of it on the coffee table that he didn't do it, the phone, the message that went to someone or something. And if I fade that out, and then the room is basically dark and it only has me in it, and all I'm seeing is playing this movie of me just right, reacting, right? I don't have anyone else there. There's nothing else, no one else. I just fade it all out. Then I realize that it's all me at this point. It's not about him, right? And so we often justify our behavior by putting it in the context of worse behavior by others. Like, well, I'm okay to yell and scream at him because he's the one that broke all the promises. He's the one that's untrustable.
He did this worst thing.
And it's way worse than what I'm doing.
Right.
Right. And so we justify our behavior. But if we fade them out, there's no one or nothing that can justify it. We only have to look at ourselves. And so then you ask, do I want to be that way? Now that I'm watching just me in the movie, he's not even there, and I'm kind of berating, or I'm blaming, or I'm seeing him as less than this beautiful, gorgeous being that he is, that I married, that I just want to kiss his feet. Like, am I seeing that, or am I seeing his smallness, and is he contracting even, and am I contracting, and do I like who I'm being, right? And so when I fade it all out, it has me looking for my own cause in the matter. And then I ask myself, is that the way I want to be? Am I clapping in the theater, watching myself, giving myself a standing ovation, going, yes, that's me in my shining moment. Mm-hmm. And normally, if you're triggered and you're honest, this isn't your shining moment. Mm. You seeing that you are causing this triggered reaction, which isn't who you want to be. And so what I want to create, what I do next, is create a consideration that looks something like, in that same theater, rewind, and how would I play the movie with all of my values represented, with truth and self-expression and compassion, like all of these things represented, right? Where I'm not abandoning myself and being a pushover, right? So I'm stating truth, I'm standing firm, and I'm also bringing compassionate and love and my full resources, right? And so I play the movie, creating a consideration of who would I have to be for me to give myself a standing ovation. Like, how does that movie go? Not subtracting anything by my value set, by my aesthetic, right? Not by what his would be, like not what he would want me to do, but what I would want me to do that would have me standing in that theater, clapping and clapping, going, oh my God, Jennifer, yes, that's it. That's the inspired way to be. And so step one is that looking for your cause in the matter, fading it out, looking at you, taking a close look. Step two is to create this consideration and play the movie in the way that has you clapping. And I want to say a little bit more about creative consideration. Like, what is that?
Okay, yeah.
Because that's not like in common parlance. Like people don't just say, oh yeah, I know what you mean. It's consideration. So a consideration is usually like has a built-in contradiction, right? So something like how can I create an environment for my partner, right? For Bryan, that feels soft and supportive and appreciative. And remember this, both and be clear with him about the ways that I'd like to see him develop. Right. And often what happens is we're triggered because those things feel at odds, right? Or we would be bringing a nice, sweet, compassionate self. And so the consideration brings in what feels like this false dichotomy, this, how can I be this way and not sacrifice some aspect of who I am and what's precious to me and what I'm trying to be righteous about, right? Can I bring both truths together at once at the same time and resolve what's seemingly paradoxical?
Mm-hmm.
And what that requires of you is to pop into a whole new dimension of being, which is evolutionary itself, which is what allows you to change the behavior, right? So this consideration gets formed of what woman would I have to become for me to play the movie where both I'm tender and supportive, and also clear about what I'd like to see different.
Part of the genius of the consideration, the way that Jennifer does it, because it's, being a like a resolve-minded person, I'm thinking, oh, I'll create the consideration, and then once I've created it, then I'm done. But what she does, and what I'm learning to do, is to then use that consideration like a window that you see your entire life through for the following like weeks or months. Yeah. So moving forward, so now that you've got the consideration created, Bryan is exactly right. Thank you for pointing that out. Is you're not done. My considerations when I do them, when I ask myself an existential question like, what kind of woman would I have to be in order to have this and that without sacrificing myself? Who is she? And what I do is I work on that for months, sometimes years, but usually months. And I look at life through the lens of that consideration, right? Where I'm having conversations about what that looks like and who that is. I'm talking to people about how it is that they're able to do that. I'm talking to people about how they're not able to do that. And I'm literally in this consideration in every meditation, in every conversation, in every interaction, looking at ways that I can build a new behavioral pattern that has me living into this new movie, so that when I play the movie and who I'm being starts to match more and more. And then all of a sudden, after I'm doing this consideration, they're a complete overlap, and I'm clapping for myself because now it's integrated to become who I am. And it begins with that deep inquiry. And it's a very open state. You have to be willing to drop all of your assumptions and all of what you think might be true about you and them. And a consideration is a completely open state where you are.
That's huge.
Yeah.
Well, it's also
Yeah,
allowing, you're giving yourself permission to practice from this new place, right? To imagine what it looks like, what it feels like, who is that individual, and to continue to hold yourself to that as you evolve or emerge.
Yeah. And it has you assume that there is a resolution to this seeming paradox of sacrifice. Like, I don't have to lose, right? All our fights are these win-lose. And if you just held to that it had to be win-win, and that win-win is the nature of the universe, like at a fundamental level, the universe is conspiring for you to live the life you want. Like it's conspiring to create your reality in alignment with what you believe, right? And that's the way the universe works. So if you hold on to that there is a win-win, there is a way to be that will have that be the emergent where both things happen, then you'll start to repattern. And so these considerations, I've always got one or two going at all times. that are guiding my evolutionary development. And so I evolve quickly because I've got these considerations. They're incredibly deep and rich. And so there's a pitfall that I want to just, or like a little warning label.
Yeah, totally.
That I want to put on these before I get to the third one real quick.
And this, if I know what you're going to say, I think this was the thing that was probably the number one thing that kept me from being effective at the repair part.
Yeah. And there's like a spiritual bypass available. and we're wanting you to not take that bypass, to not take that ramp, and to take another one. And that's really, most of us are pulling the wool over our eyes around whether we've actually decided to be different, right? And what I want you to do is don't pretend to decide that yeah, I really want to change that behavior. I really want to. It's my intention. I'm really going to change this. And I heard that time and again from people, and then the behavior wouldn't change because part of them wasn't self-aware enough to realize that they actually hadn't decided to change it. You need to admit to yourself when you haven't decided to be different. Really feel the impact of not deciding to be different. And usually we hide from that, right? So let's say my criticism of Bryan, before I've been willing to change it, I'm normally, if you're not changing, it's because you're not allowing yourself to fully feel the impact of that. Right? You're wanting to hide from how harmful that actually is to the other person and to yourself. And so until you're really willing to fully feel the impact of not deciding to be different, till you feel that impact fully, you can't actually decide to change. So you gotta not hide from that. And that most people, when they say they've decided to be different, actually just mean they wish to avoid the negative consequence of that behavior. Like, I don't really want to not judge him. I just want him to not be defensive.
Yeah. There's a big difference between not wanting to go to jail and not wanting to steal anymore.
Yeah. Yes. Oh, so that's a perfect metaphor.
Yeah.
Right? Do you want to just avoid jail, or do you actually want to change the stealing? And are you willing to feel the impact of it?
Yeah.
And so this is like a word to the wise, is like, don't take the spiritual bypass or the California sidestep that we sometimes call it. Really, really decide. You must honestly look at the benefits of doing it the way you've been doing it, right? And that's counterintuitive. Okay, so here's the benefit of me harshly criticizing Bryan for not being trustable.
Well, it's giving you something.
We wouldn't do it otherwise.
People don't appreciate it. I personally have this personal belief that there's no such thing as self-sabotage, because whatever it is that we're doing that may appear negative, that brings us back to this result that we're not desiring, we're doing it because we're trying to feel something that we think is giving us joy in the moment. It feels like we're doing something that's right for us, or serving us, or making us.
So good. Yeah. Yeah, that's exactly it. So it is yielding a benefit. It might be an immaturely formed, dysfunctional strategy, but it's giving us something.
Well, and if it's immature because it's based on an either or.
Yeah.
And there's always a both and available.
Yeah.
So
it's always a win.
Yeah, whatever. If your strategy is harmful, it's only because you've decided at some level that you can't do it unharmfully and also get the thing that you're trying to get anyway.
Yeah.
It's that 12-year-old.
Yeah, totally. It's 12, 3, whatever.
There's a win-win. What are you talking about?
Yeah, that's right. Well, she hasn't learned yet. We got to teach her.
Yeah, we got to teach her. So to really decide, you got to look honestly at the benefits of doing it the way that you've been doing it. Notice that there was a positive intended outcome. And then here's the kicker. You got to truly decide to go without that benefit. Right? And so you have to admit to yourself that you haven't decided to be different. Then you got to fully feel the impact of not deciding to be different. Realize what benefit you think you're getting, and then realize that you're going to be better off if you decide to go without that benefit. So like, one of the benefits is being righteous. Like, when I get to talk to him like that, I get to be right and he gets to be wrong. So am I ready to forego the quote unquote benefit of righteousness? Right. And that's, if we're lying to ourselves about it, we actually really like to be right. So that's a true consideration. Wow. Am I willing to let go of like this feeling of righteousness that I get every time I criticize? Like, okay. Yeah. But at least I've now admitted that I'm getting the benefit, and I've felt fully the impact. And that is the key to having a consideration that that changes your behavior, right? And so those are the first 2 steps, right? So first we said, you know, you want to look for your own cause in the matter, fade it out into the background, see just your reaction, and look at yourself in the movie theater. 2, you create the consideration, play the movie theater in the way that would have you clapping with all of your values, right? Where you don't pretend that you haven't decided to be different. You feel the full impact, right? And then you feel the benefit you're getting and forego that benefit, right? So that's step 2.
There's a tip for people like Dallas and me who are the resolvers, for whom this might be kind of foreign. Yeah. First of all, none of this happens while you're triggered.
Yeah, this all happens after.
None of it happens during the fight. And when the fight's over, we're like, okay, there's no problem, and we're not thinking about it. So one thing that I've done in the past, which really worked well, is I'll put a calendar appointment like right as the fight is resolving, when it's still really raw, and I'm like, okay, I'm so glad that's over. I grab my phone, I put a calendar appointment to do these steps in like 2 days. 2 days from now, put a calendar appointment, go through, and I make some notes about the fight so that I can remember the content. And then 2 days from now, that thing comes up. I'm in a totally different mindset. I'm actually prepared to do this. I'm grateful it came up. I'm like, okay, let's get my consideration going. And it doesn't even necessarily have to include Jennifer, because this is really more about me changing the future, right?
Yeah, remember, you're fading everyone else in the background and realizing it's really all about you, not them.
So I'm not doing this to please you or to try and resolve the fight or to try and like win points with you. It's just really, who do I want to be, such that in the future we have a different experience.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Great point. So last step, and then we'll wrap up. But the last step for me is, I mean, this is something that's added a lot of richness to my life. And, you know, some of you may or may not want to take this on, but I'll tell you the depth of, you know, he mentioned the benefit of sacred theater. And here is where the sacred theater comes, which is I identify like a power archetype, right? What's an archetype of a person who doesn't have this problem ever come up, where they've fully transcended it? It's not that they know how to handle it. It's that they don't have it to begin with, right? And when I kind of channel that archetypal image, that gives me all of the wisdom of that our whole cultural lexicon has given that archetype. Like, you know, there was a time when I was feeling kind of small and had lower self-esteem, and I took on the archetype of the queen.
I was just gonna say that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Totally.
And so now, like, I didn't have to be creative, because like when you're feeling like under-resourced and like you're supposed to change this behavior, like I don't know how to change this behavior. Like, how am I supposed to consider this? Like, I don't even know what it looks like, right? But you do know what it looks like, because there are archetypes. There are thousands of archetypes, and they all have a different kind of personality and quality and wisdom to them. And so for me, the queen taught me regality. It taught me self-esteem, confidence, poise, grace, right? A queen walks in the room and, you know, she is both soft and feminine, and yet strong and wise, right? And when she enters the room, you just feel her being uplifted, right, by her subjects, and you feel uplifted in her presence when it's a really positive queen archetype. And so I didn't have to borrow my creativity. I got to borrow the creativity of every film ever made that had queens at them, and every movie and every book and all the symbology and every fairy tale and all of that. And so you bring your full creativity. I mean, archetypes are one of those ways that you can do that. It's a way that really serves me. So every year I pick a new archetype.
You know, that's an important word. Not only is that a really fun concept and idea, and number 3, I feel really helps to support number 2. Like, not only do I love that, because like you said, sometimes we don't have the resource, but also what I think is amazing about that is like you get to be in this place of creativity and play. And I feel like resolving triggers and seeing them and wanting to be in a different place with your partner, it requires the two of you being creative and being willing to play in the space of what else is possible. And it doesn't have to be so like hard and dark
and serious. Like, we take ourselves so seriously sometimes. Like, let's add, like, in our childhood imaginations, we were resolving things all the time. You know, I mean, we were making whole universes, you know, in our backyards. and playing out whole lifetimes. Like, and we can use that same device to like add the lightness and play and permission to be more fully expressed and more radiant. So now I can be queen and a dozen other archetypes that I've taken on, and I have that full range of creativity at my beck and call because of these considerations that are in the line of my development, the line of development that's the woman I want to be, the woman he sees me becoming. And so we'll assign each other these considerations and these archetypes and have that be helping us through our triggers. So if you'll take becoming good at both the resolution, the resolving, returning you to the positive emotional state so that you can resonate with truth, and get good at the repairing where you're taking on considerations, realizing it's about you and bringing that creativity, then I guarantee you, like, you don't stay triggered on something very long. Once you've begun this process, you really can repattern some of this. And, you know, all of this that we're talking about is in the realm of like concept and perspective. But one of the important things is that, you know, you want to find your way out of the problem by, you know, really up leveling like the conversations that you're in and the practices that you're in, right? And most of us try to solve the problem at the level of it, right?
Inside the problem, you try to solve it,
And the solutions to be immersed in an environment where those problems can't take hold, right? And this is why it's so important to have like people like you, Dallas, and people like us and others that can help you, right? Like create that environment for you, that can help give you the guidance and blind spot you in ways that you can't see when you're inside it, because you know you're relying on false limiting beliefs that are simply not held by the environment. They're illusory. And so one of the problems is that we're trying to solve within our own crazy triggered selves and trying to resolve it there, and that's just really, really difficult to do.
That's actually the reason, Dallas, that we created the upcoming Evolving Love Retreat, was to create an environment exactly like one Jennifer's talking about, where in the environment, the limiting beliefs can't form. They just get teased apart, and then you can pop out of that either or dichotomic viewpoint and see the win-win that wasn't there for you before, because it's in the air, it's in the space, it's being supplied by the container. Is it all right with you if we talk a little bit about the retreat and how?
Yeah, I'd love to. I mean, it's just from what you've shared of it, I'm excited by it that you guys are doing this. It seems like the perfect environment, you know, for those listening, whether you're single or in a relationship. I couldn't recommend like a better environment to be in, to actually really go deep with these things and practice them, and to be amongst other individuals who are desiring to, you know, improve this as well as other things in their life as well around relationship. It's just, if it wasn't for a date constraint, I'd be in the room. It's epic. So please do.
Yeah. Well, so we've the retreat is the maximum of 30 people, and we only have a few spots
left at this point. Yeah.
And it's for three kinds of people. It's for people who are single and want an evolutionary relationship. It's for people who are in a relationship that might be in trouble, you know, couples who are fighting against a persistent pattern that they really, really want to transcend. It's also for couples in bliss who are just wanting to pave an amazing transcendent path forward. And so the bliss couples and the trouble couples and the singles are going to get together. We're going to all share experiences and create an environment together that's just incredible for really learning, not only in your mind, but doing the actual practices that will put into your body, into your bones, that automatic patterning that creates transcendence and an epic relationship.
Yeah. And what we're creating for people to really learn, you know, it's a shame that we spend all of our educational lives just mostly learning like reading, writing, math, history. Those are important subjects. But one of the subjects that's sorely missing, that has a bigger impact on the quality of your life than any other subject, is like relating to other human beings on this planet. And we don't spend any time. I mean, it's kind of shocking, like teaching all of this, like teaching people how to do this, but it can be taught, right? And so what we're going to cover We've got like 7 evolutionary conversations that'll raise the consciousness of your relationship that we're going to go through. We've got 7 evolutionary practices that you can engage in your conversation to really go from an ordinary to an extraordinary relationship. So if you want to come play with us, you're going to be getting kind of the college course that you should have gotten on how to have an extraordinary relationship. One of the things that we'll go into is dissolving that codependent and insecure attachment patterns, which almost everybody we talk to has one or the other of. Either they're exactly right. And you're going to learn like the 3 steps to kind of create a more secure connection. So we're going to go through that, and we're going to do this in a live experiential environment. It's not just talking heads. We're actually going to laser coach and guide you, right? We're going to detect your partner's highest evolutionary path and how to guide them to it, and vice versa. So if you end up coming as a couple, which you don't need to, you can come as a single. We're going to help you actually find how to create that path for one another.
We've actually found that this kind of couples work and the work that we're going to do at this retreat is more effective purpose work than most purpose work.
Yeah. So if you want to like find your purpose, which is, I know, something that's a big thing for you, Dallas, because you're so good at helping people with this part. This is also going to give you access to that, but it's certainly going to give you your purpose for loving and being in relationship. We're going to teach you how to de-escalate and self-regulate. We're going to help you find those invisible symmetries. We're going to do things that help you learn how to be supportive. And we're going to create a guidebook for, the monogamous and open relationship playbooks, right? So we've got one for monogamous couples, one for open couples. There's like a whole playbook, if you will, on how to keep your relationship sexy and drama-free. So it's going to be a really beautiful event. If you're ready to rewrite your relationship DNA, we want you to come and join us. Like, let us know. We've only got a few spots left. We are doing this webinar and doing this work in order to kind of expose you to the kind of education that you should have gotten about this, and to be in the room with people that are like focused on evolving how we love. Like, that's what we're up to. We're going to be evolving how we love. So we would just love to have any of you that are curious about this join us. And if you go to the page, it's on your right. I've got there should be a button over there. You can see it. It'll take you to the link. All sorts of information about it. There's a frequently asked questions page. And there's even a way to sign up for a call if you're like on the edge wondering, okay, should I be there? Click that link and you can have a call with me and we'll talk about it. But we just want to personally invite those of you that came to this, that listened to this, that realized that this is a game changer, that this could actually change your quality of life and how you relate and evolve how you love. Like, we want to give you an opportunity to play in a more deep way.
Well, there's one thing that, it's one thing to hear about a new concept, like hear something like that really inspired you and on this webinar, and then go, wow, that was amazing. Oh my, and your heart opens and you kind of can picture how your relationship might benefit from it. But it's another thing to remember to do that thing, especially when you're triggered or when it comes up.
You got to regroove a whole new pattern.
And so we really do need the retreat environment to get all the way to the baseline of some of this stuff, which is something that Jennifer and I have been doing together for almost 20 years now. I guess we've been together for 8, but before that, separately
in our own personal work,
personal work and our own personal leading of transformational workshops like this one.
So
the price is only $3,500 for couples and $2,500 for singles. Again, I think we have 4 spots left or something.
Something like that. Yeah.
It's very,
and that
very
includes your entire accommodations. It includes all of the gourmet food that we've got a chef coming in to make. You're in a 12,000 square foot mansion.
The photos of that place.
Oh,
gorgeous.
It's epic.
Just to go get away for like a little mini vacation, I'd go just for that.
Seriously,
to be in the environment and be in that place, I'd go just for that. It's honestly like it's a ridiculous steal, and it's like everything but the flight, right? Like,
totally.
Yeah, everything but the flight is handled. You get there and you'll be whisked into a beautiful room with decks and pools and hot tubs and saunas and game rooms and trails, and it's just beautiful. And then you're going to be in an environment that, an appropriate investment. You'll have 3.5 days to completely change the nature of how you relate. It's an absolutely, invaluable investment, because I believe on a really deep level. Like I'm going to get a little deep here, a little spiritual here around it, which is that we can't live in a world without war until we heal the war within us and heal the divide between the masculine and feminine. So this to me is where it begins, because we repeat and that same warring in our decision making and in how we govern ourselves and how we handle our economic systems, right? So we've got to heal it first in ourselves with our partners if we ever hope to create a world that's thriving and not at each other's throats. And so this is really, really important work. So
again, as a couple, you're looking at like less than $600 a night for incredibly high quality catered food, this beautiful location, and there's a great mix of open time and structured time where we are going to doing this deep work together. So we totally love to see you there. And
we have a little special offer.
Yeah.
Oh, cool.
Which is if you'll sign up from this webinar using the button right there to the right, we've got a discount code for a free session with us. It's and the code is Align My Love 16, all capital letters, Align My Love 16 in the discount code. And you'll get a free session with Bryan and I, which we promise to just blow your mind. And so go ahead. If you want to sign up, you can get that session with us ahead of time.
It's a $500 value to get a one-on-one with us, which we can do either before or after the retreat.
Yeah, I think it would probably be after, but we'll help you like go to the retreat, and then we'll help you kind of like put it into your day-to-day with that.
Oh, that's great. Yeah, that makes complete sense. So what was it? Give it to him one more time. Is everything you can type it into the comments?
Yeah, typing it in. It's Align My Love 16. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to put that in the chat.
Cool.
For all of you there. Let me see. Discount code is, there it is. Align My Love. That's for a free Align Your Love Life session with us. Okay, great. And then and we've got a question here. It says, how do you suggest something like this to someone who may not feel comfortable facing themselves yet?
Yeah. So that was a question for, it's interesting. And I want to share something directly to that for a moment. One, what do you do when one person in the relationship is willing and ready to be the evolutionary partner, and the other person's like, fuck that. So for lack of a better language and term. That's kind of how I'm hearing the question. If the person asking wants to clarify even more,
well, let
me know.
Yes, Dallas, it's a follow-up to an earlier. He said, I just found out my girlfriend wasn't kissing me for the days because I said she had bad breath. Totally in jest.
Like he didn't even mean it. It was just it was just kidding, right?
I had no idea what was going on because it had been a while since we had hung out last. And then, so how do I suggest something like bad breath to someone who may not feel comfortable facing themselves yet? I since it's both from Rob, I think it's connected. So, let's first of all look at love's hidden symmetry. Because if you are ready to be the evolutionary partner and your partner saying heck no, then I would first look for what are the ways that you are saying heck no to the development that your partner is indicating for you, because that's almost certainly there. And what are the things that you're not willing to face? Like in Rob's case, it's possible that you said totally in jest, and you might not be willing to face the ways that you were using humor to kind of jab at her because you weren't comfortable telling her how you felt and how you wanted her to change. So that would be, I would, always look here first. And that's what my
yeah. And here's something I want to add. If you're assuming that they don't want to look at themselves, that, oh, how do I suggest something when they don't want to look at themselves? You're assuming their smallness in that moment, right? Oh, how many times have I heard this? Oh, I can't be honest with her. She can't take it. Like she couldn't take me actually telling her this thing. I have to keep it from her because I just don't want to hurt her. Right. And so we buy into these ideas that other people can't take it, that we can't handle the truth. We can't handle what it is that we need to face. And I guess I encourage you to believe not in her smallness or his smallness, but in her greatness or his greatness, in order to that not only can they take it, but they are a request for it on some level, which is why it's coming up to begin with. And so if you'll assume this is what they want, and you can deliver it in a way that's loving and clean, and look at the ways that maybe it's your delivery that's the problem, not their smallness or inability to get it. It might be that it's the delivery that was the problem, not them.
Mm-hmm.
So we want it. I mean, think about it. If someone said to you, "Oh, you can't take the truth," you'd be like, "Of course, I want the truth." Oh, how many people would say, "No, I don't want it. I don't want any of that truth stuff." Right? We actually all want it. So believe that about humans, that we actually want that.
Mm-hmm.
Like in our natural state, we want it. We do want it delivered in a way that'll have us hear it.
Mm-hmm.
So then the onus is on you to believe that they want it, and then to deliver it in a way that they can hear it. So that's my answer to that question.
Yeah.
If anyone else has questions, you can chat, but we're basically at our end of our 90 minutes.
Yeah.
So we got to kind of wrap it up. So if I see anything really quick before we say goodbye to you, we'll take it. But if you have questions, go to the site, look at the frequently asked questions. If you're ready to really realign your love life, come play with us for 3 days. You won't be sorry. You're in such good hands. Either way. Yeah, either way, keep in touch with us. Let us know, like, just how you're doing and what your love life is like. Find us on social media. Engage us in conversations about love. We would love that. So, Rob is telling us thank you for that. So we're really appreciating that you had a question. So we got to sign off. We're at at the hour, at our end. But Dallas, oh my God, you're so much fun to do this with. Thank you
so much, Dallas. That's great.
Man, so good.
It flows magically. This live event coming soon. We're going to do something.
Yeah.
I can feel it. So yeah, this is great.
More of this. Well, have a wonderful rest of your day or night. If you're watching this on the replay, you'll see on the right-hand side, you'll see that same link.
Yes.
Feel free to take a look. Have a great evolutionary journey when in your life, in evolving how you love and rewriting your whole story. So we're in your corner.
I'm so excited for the turning point for the people that will join us at this retreat, for the magic and the amazing sex and the love and the sparkly, like the way the whole world feels awesome when things are great in your relationship. And I know that turning point is awaiting for these people and could be awaiting for you if you join us. So I'm just really filled with excitement about that.
Yeah, go get that for real.
Yeah. And with that, we bid you good night. So, or for us, it's night, but we'll bid you goodbye, and hopefully we'll see you in our field, in our sphere.
Awesome.
Have a great night.
Good night.
Rock on, everybody.
Yeah. Bye. Ciao.